I regret deeply, my friends. I made a mistake that cost me the only person I truly loved. My selfish thoughts led to his departure, and I can't help but feel remorse for the pain I caused him and the fact that he left. If only he had stayed, we could have mended our relationship and worked through my blunders. Instead of walking away, I wished he had guided me towards the right path. The choices I made were unwise. I had a loyal companion, a caring partner, an exceptional spouse, and in my folly, I squandered it all for fleeting pleasure. At 19, I encountered my husband at the library. He was 21. We met amidst bookshelves, where I hadn't been on a date before or been in a relationship. I was reserved and focused on my studies. However, he approached me first with familiar words. "I've noticed you here often and find you attractive. Would you like to get to know each other better? Can I have your contact information?" I promptly declined his offer, as I preferred my solitude within the university. Initially, I intended to briefly visit and depart with my degree, but over several months, he frequently joined us at our table in the library. Often, he brought a book, yet sometimes he didn't and engaged in discussions with my friends instead. Eventually, I grew accustomed to his daily presence, observing him observe me as I studied and listening to his polite interactions with my companions. However, one day he was absent, prompting my concern. When I inquired of my friends about his whereabouts, they all claimed ignorance. The only person who responded said, "Aren't you aware that his life doesn't revolve around you? He probably grew tired of waiting on you and left." At the time, those words stung me, but later I understood why. It was because I was starting to develop feelings for him, and learning he might have moved on was painful. I did not see him again the following day either. Dear friends, if you enjoy this story, please like and subscribe to our channel. It will motivate us to make more videos like this for you. I inquired about his phone number from my friends so I could contact him, since he hadn't been around for a couple of days, which made me concerned. Perhaps he was ill or hospitalized. However, they told me none of them had his number because I explicitly asked them not to. It struck me as odd. The day following this, he reappeared, as usual, accompanied by his friends, bid them goodbye and headed for the shelves. He grabbed a C8301 textbook from the bookshelves and approached our table. I can still recall the course it was for, as that was the first time I took notice of what books he read. "Hey, why haven't I seen you for 2 days? I started to worry," I said as he sat down at our table. "Well, well, look who decided to speak up," he replied, causing the others to laugh. "I was genuinely concerned about your absence," I continued, removing my glasses and looking him straight in the eye for what might have been the first time during that semester. He gazed at me, initially taken aback, then smirking. He was strikingly attractive, resembling an animated character. I questioned why it took me so long to notice. Despite an ordinary physique, his attractiveness was remarkable. His captivating blue eyes were mesmerizing. For someone only 5'9", he possessed a larger-than-life persona. He had a deep, gravelly voice that resonated within me so strongly, I found myself holding him when he spoke sometimes. It seems trivial now, but small moments like that are what I miss the most. "Concerned about me?" he inquired after a moment's pause. "I'd trust you, but I'm not even certain if you know my name," he commented. "Stanley," I replied promptly. My companions at the table chuckled again. "You see, you don't even know my real name," he said as he joined in the laughter. "That nickname originated from junior high and has followed me here. Apart from the mistake, it's Stan Lee, not Stanley, as in the founder of Marvel Comics," he clarified. He stood up and switched tables, now sitting by himself. Prior to this, I had never seen him at the library or alone. It felt odd to overhear him since I didn't know his name, and I regretted it. Occasionally, I glanced over at him, nervously biting my nails, hoping he would return to our table or even cast me a glance. For 3 hours straight, he was engrossed in the books he had retrieved from the shelf. Given the approaching exams, his behavior was reasonable. However, I couldn't shake off the feeling that it was because of me he needed to focus elsewhere. "If you're so drawn to him already," my friend Sophia suggested, "you should go speak to him." "Speak to him?" "No. Absolutely not. Replacing my glasses and resuming my reading, I ignored her advice. I had previously comprehended much of that book, as my bus stop and examination preparations took priority, leaving me merely skimming its pages, pondering whether I should approach him. Relenting, I rose, walking towards his table. "Return, I apologize," I said, which he later referred to as the most adorable anime-style apology. Elevating an eyebrow in a way reminiscent of his inquisitive expression, he looked at me. I took a seat opposite him. Initiating conversation proved challenging, and he picked up on it, assuring me that he wasn't angry or upset with me, though he seemed disappointed that I didn't recognize him. He revealed that he was sitting alone due to an upcoming test. He mentioned the instructor was stern and stingy with grades. He stressed the necessity of passing the course to avoid extending his academic year by another term. He mentioned he would have continued at the table, but chose to look at me instead of reading. "So, what's your name?" I inquired. He set aside his book and gazed at me, smiling. "Daniel introduces Daniel," he stated, extending a handshake. "I've always found the pairing of Daniel and Daniel to be ideal. I still do. I can't comprehend why I caused such a commotion." I stood up to depart. He attempted to hold my hand. I recall being thoroughly shaken. "If you prefer to be elsewhere than here, I'd like to take you out tomorrow following my test," he suggested. I was genuinely delighted that he asked me on a date. Had he done so earlier, I likely would have declined him politely, but there I was, flustered, with butterflies in my stomach for this young man. To be honest, if I could turn back the clock machines, I'd do many things differently. I would have given him my full attention, made more of an effort to make him content. In retrospect, I would have been less self-centered. Currently, I'm yearning for a measure of empathy from strangers as I weep and recall the delightful moments spent with my Daniel. We had an excellent date, and he was incredibly witty, saying profound things that resonated deeply. He exuded charm, and it was evident when other women cast envious glances our way. On our date, he mentioned being the runner-up for Mr. UCLA, and in my mind, I thought it was deserved because there weren't many men who were more handsome than him. Our relationship during our time at UCLA was extraordinary, like a story straight out of a high school romance novel. He was often invited to parties, and when he went, I was usually by his side, hand in hand. We were nearly inseparable, and we were crowned the most influential couple in his final semester, an honor that, I must admit, was mostly due to him because few knew me before we started dating. He was my first for everything first date, first kiss, first love, first everything. Our relationship lacked novelty for him, as everything we shared had been experienced before, save matrimony. He remained tolerant and patient, clarifying issues that puzzled me, and he rarely exhibited anger. Regrettably, I was naive, often measuring our intimate moments, feeling somewhat unsatisfied with being the sole occupant on my own list. I aspired for bragging rights, reasoning that seeking other partners to balance the equation seemed rational. Months into marriage, I tentatively proposed the idea of expanding our union. Initially, I had subtly hinted at it, but his dismissive response made me fear losing him if I pursued it further. One day, I inquired about his hypothetical reaction should we explore polyamory a little. I wasn't anticipating his blunt response. "I'll just leave without a second thought," which left me enraged. It seemed as if he was trying to control me when he had already enjoyed himself outside our relationship. After a few months, I asked him again and received the same reply. This was what led me to decide that I would wait until after we got married. I believed that he would comprehend my perspective once we were wed. When we eventually tied the knot, I made another attempt. I must admit that this was extremely selfish of myself, marrying him merely because I wanted to explore my sexuality without losing the man I love. Eventually, I managed to bind him to me so that I could do as I pleased. I regret not taking his feelings into account when he expressed them. Now, I despise myself for letting my true love slip away. People say that opportunities only come once, and I know I've missed the one chance I had at being loved for who I am. Years later, I've realized no one has treated me as kindly as Daniel did. No one has loved me with the same depth as he did. Our intended 4-month vacation was meant to be a joyous holiday, but my infidelity tainted it. For 5 years, we had been together, and 3 years into our relationship was when I began seeking intimacy elsewhere. Despite this, I went on the trip, yearning for another while still with him. I harbored dreams of indulging in illicit acts within our honeymoon suite, with him watching. It's appalling to admit, but my depraved desires were fueled by Tom. Standing at 6 feet 5 inches tall and maintaining a muscular physique from regular workouts, he was imposing. His clothes always accentuated the time he spent at the gym. Standing at 6 feet 1, I towered over most men in both my personal and professional life. However, encountering someone who made me feel diminutive was unsettling. This new coworker, who joined our hierarchy above me, was such a person. Being older than me and my former husband, he exuded a charm that was hard to resist, despite the daily professional interactions. His subtle flirting, soft-spoken words, and seemingly intentional advances were making reporting to him challenging as I struggled to maintain professionalism amidst my growing attraction. One day, he invited me for drinks. The proposition left me puzzled. Was it a move to court me, or merely a friendly gesture? Could he be interested in me, or was he capitalizing on my obvious infatuation with him? These questions swirled through my mind. In no instance did I contemplate Daniel's feelings or consider the harm I might cause him. We headed to a bar near our office, where I consumed more than an acceptable amount of alcohol. Our conversation veered from getting to know each other to topics unfit for public discussion. I revealed my desire to explore more, to be something beyond just another man's wife. I confessed my knowledge that many women would gladly swap places with me, but all I sought was a hint of adventure. I disclosed everything, from my plan to open up my marriage in search of sexual freedom without guilt, to admitting my crush on him. Upon questioning about whether I had discussed this with my husband, I responded affirmatively, adding, "Yes, but he doesn't view things as I do." Daniel then voiced something that mirrored my folly. Admit it now, I was seeking any escape from my frivolous responsibilities then. You should address him assertively rather than questioningly, I think. It's preferable he opens up the marriage for your amusement instead of you hiding things behind his back. I swear to God, Tom embodied bad choices. He provided terrible advice with an air of certainty that it was in my best interest. Now I realize he said those things only to be with me. That night he made me feel like a queen of the universe. It reminded me of the daily treatment from my Daniel, but experiencing it for the first time from another man made me feel like a teenager again. We parted that day after sharing a kiss. Upon returning home, I found my husband sleeping in the living room, likely waiting up so long for my arrival from work. Slipping in silently, I ventured into the bathroom to freshen up with a shower and toothbrush, erasing the lingering scent of alcohol. Despite still being slightly tipsy, it was under control. Rousing him from sleep, I informed him that I needed to discuss something. He reciprocated, revealing an exciting secret he wanted to share, but regardless, he allowed me to go first. His face glowed with a beautiful smile as he listened attentively while I spoke my mind, a smile that swiftly vanished in mere seconds. Unperturbed, I knew I was making the right decision. I merely wished for your awareness that this course of action is necessary. I would appreciate your backing on it. The truth is, I can't bear the thought that you have more experience than me. It makes me feel as though I'm a compromise. I don't want to be seen as a concession. Rather, I aspire to be desired and revered by other men, just as you once did with other women before knowing me. I can't find happiness without this, and there's no argument about it. We're opening our marriage. Those were harsh words I spoke to the one man who loved me when everyone called me a werned, a nickname I earned in university, coined by a peculiar nerd. I said those words to a man who eradicated those derogatory names. He was the one who made me receive even a sliver of the attention I craved. Those words are ingrained deep within my mind, and each time I recall that event, I weep. What kind of foolish young woman was I? He gazed intently at me for a while, then lowered his head, seemingly defeated. For what felt like an hour, he sat in silence before uttering, "Well, you've spoken your mind, so I suppose that's that." He departed to the bedroom. On leaving, I asked him about what he wanted to tell me. He replied it was nothing, and he was exhausted from too much thinking at work. The following day, I rushed into my boss's arms. In the morning, we became intimate within his office, marking the start of numerous such instances. Tom was my initial partner, but not the only one. I had multiple ones. Fridays found me socializing with colleagues at their usual TGIF venue, occasionally waking up next to a stranger on Saturdays, someone I'd never met before and never saw again after that day. I turned into an actual seductress. I believed Daniel was bearing the brunt of this lifestyle change. I knew it was a phase and I would outgrow it, but I was unaware of the cost I would pay to achieve understanding. I continued experimenting with different men every few days. After 2 months, Tom came to my house while I was preparing for work. He was supposed to pick me up. I thought my husband had already left for work, as he usually did. I thought I could take advantage of the situation to have a quick rendezvous before we headed to the office together. My spouse welcomed Tom, holding bouquets, at the door. The sound of water pouring in the shower drowned out their conversation. Emerging to overhear their polite banter, I suspected Daniel's humor-laced remark about light bulbs implied he was fine with our open marriage. Emotions seldom surfaced on Daniel. His expressions were either a smile or a frown. Therefore, I assumed his joking attitude signified acceptance. Even opening the car door for me as I departed with Tom seemed casual. Unbeknownst to my inexperienced mind, I was digging a deep pit for our marital union on that drive to the office, as Tom also joked about Daniel's ease regarding our open relationship arrangement. On a usual Friday, I would join colleagues for drinks, but this particular Friday, I opted to stay in and booked a hotel with city views instead, where I spent the night having sex with my boss Tom. The following morning, upon returning home, I noticed an unusual quietness. My husband never stayed silent on Saturdays, as he would typically play his favorite tunes loudly from the speaker, even if I returned late from work or one of my dates. However, this Saturday, the apartment was eerily quiet. I checked the gym first and found it empty. My husband usually spent Saturdays there running on the treadmill. In the kitchen, my favorite cup was on the counter, but no coffee had been brewed as he would always do. I smiled, recalling glimpses of the life we shared since cohabiting 3 years before our 2-year marriage. I picked up my empty cup, only to discover a sealed letter within. Details of the contents elude me now, yet it remains with me as a memento of a beautiful chapter I allowed to decay in pursuit of fleeting desires. My self-disappointment runs deep. This choice, letting Daniel slip away, ranks among my most foolish decisions ever made. I retrieved the letter from its envelope, leaving it in the cup that still carries his scent after more than 5 years. The note read, "Greetings, hope you're well. You might be puzzled as to why Smooth Criminal isn't playing on the speakers at this moment. By the time you read this, I would likely have arrived in Saw. Over the subsequent 5 years, my firm will sponsor Africa's brightest computer-literate individuals through a comprehensive program. Consequently, I will be residing in South Africa for this period. Rest assured, your infidelity hasn't slipped my memory. Upon my return, we'll commence the divorce process. I hope that the company Tom kept and the other men you entertained, Lavelle, was a worthy trade-off. When you made that comment, I assumed it was a jest. However, your actions from yesterday confirmed otherwise. I regret ever knowing you. If given a chance to alter my past, I would have left when you first rejected me. Frankly, the heartaches you've caused don't justify your existence in my life, and I won't feign sincerity. I don't wish you well. Included with this letter was a flight ticket for June 7, 2014, and a passport intended for me. On the back of the ticket was a message that read, "Recall the news I mentioned 2 months ago. This is it." Initially, my firm had planned to cover our trip expenses to South Africa, and they also expressed an intention to offer you a job. At the base of the cup lay his wedding ring. My universe seemed to shatter before me. I spent the ensuing day fixated on the cup, unable to eat or drink anything. All I did was gaze at the cup. The days that followed were marked by a prolonged period of depression as my world began to disintegrate. The next day, Elias, Tom's dearest friend and longest companion, visited to gather all of Tom's possessions. I wept profusely. I witnessed him and the movers he summoned transporting all of Tim's items, which had become somewhat sentimental to me over time. In a kind gesture, Elias allowed me to keep a box containing Tom's cologne and favorite hoodie, only for him to retrieve it the following day. He entered the house that day, finding me still dressed in the attire I wore to work on Friday. He almost forcefully took the hoodie from my hands that day. For more than 24 hours, I had drained myself from constant crying. Otherwise, I would have resisted. Elias glared at me and scolded, "I was informed by Stan Lee about your actions. You're a disgrace to women everywhere, and I hope you live with this shame forever." He proceeded to find the cologne and snatch them as well. As he exited the house, he threatened, "If not for the laws of the land, I would have spit in your face. You can see the state of this room. That's how I wish your life turns out sad and barren." Elias never minced his words. He spoke his mind and made his intentions clear. He expressed his feelings openly, whether he liked you or not. His words pierced me then, but they hurt more now, since my cherished half abandoned me, leaving the house in a perpetual state of sadness and emptiness. I attempted to distract myself by immersing myself in something or someone, attempting to surpass the sorrow of losing my lover. Tom received a transfer a week later, this time at his own request. He inquired about his request for a transfer, expressing my belief that we were constructing something, and he candidly disclosed that he was distancing himself from me, indicating that he had enjoyed his time, but it was now time to progress. Additionally, he cautioned me to finalize my marriage with Tom before it was too late. However, I failed to realize that this advice came a week after the fact. My new supervisor was extremely stern. It didn't take long for my errors, stemming from my instability at the time and lack of reciprocation of his advances, to be noticed. Consequently, I was terminated. Furthermore, Elias informed my parents about the situation. Given their religious background and roles as church ministers, they associated me with a fallen woman who had recklessly destroyed her marriage for the sake of physical intimacy with another man. To make matters worse, I never found the comfort I sought. I maintained my interactions with Tom so that he would reach out to me. The 5 years he mentioned passed without incident. Neither he nor I heard word from him returning to the country. I attempted to contact Elias, only to learn that he had moved to South Africa with him a year later. I lost most of my friends. It became clear to me that many of these people merely tolerated me. The only positive aspect in my life was the partnership with Elias in the D couple. I discovered that I wasn't witty, and I was far from pleasant company. I realized how intolerable I could be. These realizations pushed me below ground level. After Elias abandoned me, I plummeted further than starting over. I sank below zero. In 2023, at age 36, over a decade has passed, and I've never sustained any relationship beyond the initial 3 months. Right now, I loathe my existence and wish for a tranquil death in my sleep. Occasionally, I blame Daniel for leaving me so abruptly. I fervently advise any woman considering an open marriage to reconsider. That concept seems regrettable. I yearn for the day when I might encounter Daniel on the street. I wish to express my apologies, to convey that I haven't found solace elsewhere, and that, despite the passage of a decade, I continue to cherish him. I long to confess that causing him pain was the most wretched act I have ever committed, that I sought to rebuild a life with him. My romantic pursuits, unfortunately, have floundered. Men are reluctant to be with the woman who shattered her husband's heart in pursuit of something novel. I've been involved with multiple partners, but as soon as the subject arises, it's as if love drains from their faces. I reside in the bungalow Daniel and I purchased jointly. It's small because we desired a modest family. I urgently crave closure and his pardon. I require your assistance in seeking comfort, as financial constraints prevent me from engaging in therapy due to my unemployment that began when I was let go 10 years ago by my replacement supervisor. Since then, I've been struggling to stabilize myself. Thank you for taking the time to read through this lengthy account. Update: over 2 months have passed since my initial post. For those who didn't see my previous update, Here is an explanation of recent developments in my personal life. My husband, or former husband, if you will, departed me after I decided to open up our marriage. It has been almost a decade since he left, and in that time I have recognized the extent to which I am nothing without him. I lost the vast majority of those close to me due to their affection for him, as we were only around because they had to be. However, for the first time since his departure, things seemed to be improving. He appeared to have read my previous post, as he contacted me shortly afterwards. It was a pleasant surprise to hear his voice again after so long. His deep, gravelly voice used to resonate through me for hours, stirring emotions as I wept at the pain I'd caused him. He couldn't fathom my actions at first, assuming it was another one of my late April jokes. The sight of him with Tom and their conversation left a piece of him lifeless. He felt humiliated, resenting himself for enduring until I shattered him. He explained his reasons for not returning after the initial 5 years, confessing that it took him the entire period to recover from me, only finding joy again at the program's end. He feared our reunion could threaten his newfound happiness. In response, I shared my life's journey, shedding tears throughout our lengthy discussion. We reminisced about the old times, and I cried, realizing fully the man I let slip away. A week later, as promised, he visited my house, delivering divorce documents. In that house, he observed my distress, noticed a cup with a letter and his ring still at the bottom, and saw rooms that remained empty despite being 10 years past his departure. For the first time in our acquaintance, I could discern his feelings. They were filled with pity. He inquired about my life, learning more than he'd previously known from phone conversations. He referred to Tom as a towering, ugly brute. I shared my experiences, detailing how Tom arrived, stayed for 2 months, and departed. He grimaced, a habit possibly picked up during his time in Africa. He sighed, then said, "So, you ended a 7-year relationship over 2 months of sex," before inquiring about the nature of our intimacy. Never before had anyone treated me as well in bed as Daniel did. He knew my body and mind intimately, and he knew how to bring me to the place I desired. Unlike other men, he didn't just seek pleasure and depart. Regrettably, I discarded everything that defined me for something Daniel excelled at more than the 14 men I had been with before. In his kindness, he suggested I undergo therapy, claiming he had moved on, and so should I. He made me feel like the universe revolved around me one last time before he departed. We have now finalized our divorce, and I've been attending therapy sessions for a month, all thanks to Daniel. I am grateful for the divine gift of a man that fate placed in my path, but I continue to loathe myself for squandering it. Although it's taken me 36 years, it's now time for me to strive towards being a better person. I thank you for reading this and hope there is nothing else that would compel me to return. At last, I can presumably advance forward.